Hi, I'm Joshua Hayward, Breath of Life School in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and welcome to the teachings. And this is a video series that's intended as a journey in spiritual discovery. And so we ask some questions and we kind of find what percolates up that might help us and might inspire us and might even be healing. So the question for this episode today is, well, what is synchronicity? Okay, and if you haven't heard that word, it's really one of the more important terms in dealing with the human psyche in the 20th and now in the 21st century, for sure. And what it talks about is when circumstances tend to align meaningfully, and some things are brought together, but it happens without any apparent causal connection. So we use the term coincidence quite a bit. Now, if you're a fan of watching crime and detective stories, and videos or reading mystery books and stuff like that, you've probably heard detectives say stuff like, "I don't believe in coincidence," or, "There really aren't any accidents." Okay, so that's kind of where we stand with trying to form a definition for synchronicity. And let's not only we'll define it, but we'll see how it can be a meaningful, almost like a tool for spiritual growth and for discovery of Christ consciousness, which is what this series is about. Yeah. So it could be synchronicity. You could have been thinking about the word synchronicity, and maybe you heard somebody talking about it, and then all of a sudden you're looking around through YouTube and you come up with this channel, and here's a show about synchronicity. And so then you get to actually watch something that will tell you, or a little bit about synchronicity. So that's coincidental. What are the chances? So things fit together, and spirit does not work by accident. So things are definitely related. At least that's my perspective. I'm not going to tell you what to believe or how to perceive things. What I like to do is share what I've learned and what Spirit is channeling through me, and to share that stuff. And it's up to whomever as to what they do with it. So synchronicity was a word that sort of came up with C.G. Jung, or Carl Jung, one of the major pioneers, sort of a counterpart, a very different philosophy about psychology than, say, Sigmund Freud, although they did know each other. And Jung was more into the psyche as more of a spiritual kind of connection with things, rather than scientific in some ways. And so we metaphysicians and people who are into more alternative kind of things than not really as much into hard science. Well, psychology is not a hard science, right? By definition. But we tend to favor Jung, because Jung, when he talked about synchronicity, he also talked about dreams a lot. His work was so oriented with the dream world and other access to the psyche that's not the conscious mind. And he talked about the collective unconscious. We seem to be plugged in. Our unconsciouses seem to share through what we'd call the subconscious. it is something basically that we're all plugged in, not on that conscious thinking mind type of level, but we're plugged in. Hence, there aren't really any accidents because we're looking for meaning in the outer world, even whether we know that or not. Some kind of stuff is percolating in the psyche. Somehow that does attract things to come and sometimes verify or to give us messages. Synchronicity is almost, and it's definitely akin to doing or getting a reading, a psychic reading, like through whatever medium. It could be like astrology or tarot or clairvoyance or numerology, what have you. So circumstances align at certain times, and there are messages there for us. So there's a lot of growth. So when we ask the question, what is synchronicity? Okay, let's double back to that. Synchronicity is an opportunity to plug in and to almost get a reading on life and what's going on. We get validated some of the thoughts that we're having, and not only sometimes are we validated, but we are given some more information, which in turn will link us into something else, something more. And it can be really, really fascinating. Some of you that might be watching might be aware of the 1111 phenomenon, which is one of those circulating kind of things that really talk about synchronicity. And when you see the clock come up 1111, it's almost like it's a message that you're on track. And that may happen, not only that 1111, but if that may appear, you may look at your clock and all of a sudden there it is, and you go, well, that's cool. But you might be thinking about something else or working on some other material or some kind of other connection with external circumstances that say, okay, boom, right now, look at that, where are you with that? And then, so in that moment, all of a sudden you can see, when you look up at the clock and you see that, all of a sudden something else that you're looking at becomes suddenly more meaningful. And for me, without meaning, life seems to be hollow. It seems to be two-dimensional. Maybe that's just me, but it's not really. There's a lot of people that really need that extra dimension of meaning and purpose. Okay, so through synchronicity, we can find purpose, deeper connections with our purpose and our significance. So it's being alert to what's going on in the outer world and what it might in turn say to us about our inner spiritual life in the psyche. And yes, it shows that there's a magical interaction of things. If you want to believe, if anyone wants to believe that these things are really coincidental, and there are some of them that when you go, okay, yeah, that's a coincidence, right? I'm not going to go into relating a bunch of stories like that, but you know what I'm talking about. If you're watching this right now, you've watched this far in the episode, that means that you're likely to have experienced a little bit of this, and you're wanting to enrich yourself with some more info about it. Something happened to me the other day. Here's another way of relating to it. And I'm really big on releasing judgments. You may see that in some of the videos. In an earlier video, I was talking about how I've given my friends and other people in my life permission to correct me if I'm ever laying out some judgments or being unkind or mean. And so this is really a very important thing for me. And so I'm pretty big on dropping judgment, but I keep finding out that I still have them, and every time I see it, I really smile and my heart's happy because I'm able to let that go, and that lightens my load. So synchronicity is a great way of lightening your load because it just brightens you up. You know, it allows you to let go of some heavy baggage. So, i.e. judgment, shame, blame, those kind of things. And if you think that you don't do that, think again. But you may be really on the lower end of that spectrum of judgment and that kind of thing. This is really good. Keep going in that direction, because the more we release that stuff, the more we neutralize the planet, the more energy there is on the planet for creativity. So synchronicity is great for that. Okay, so here's my story. And I live in Yellow Springs. We have this quaint little downtown area that, well, especially when it's nice, and during the warmer months, we have a lot of tourism and a lot of people passing through. And so we've got a couple of stopwalks. So we really have to be careful about the pedestrian. And you're supposed to stop, and you really need to stop because you got people walking around kind of out of their bodies a little bit, and they're like, whoa, and they're shopping or they're hiking the Glen or doing whatever. They're doing some really cool things and chatting with each other. And so we gotta be aware of that. And so I'm coming up from the lower end of town and towards this little area where there are a couple of really important stopwalks there, and there's this car that's almost a third of it's parked outside of the parking space right out in front of the market there, and it's like into the street, and I'm like, what is this? And I was like, this is not good, and I go by it and I'm trying to be careful, and wow, this is, and so inside my head, of course, like, this person really needs to learn how to park. And all of a sudden I look up, because I'm looking back, and I look up, and two nice ladies are, they're trying to cross the street, and here I am, and I look at them, and here's the stopwalk, and I'm like, Arr! So I a little bit of rubber there, and they're kind of looking at me like a little dubious, and I'm like with a little smile, sorry. So here's the synchronicity in that whole thing is that, here you are judging somebody, and as you do that, you're screwing up on your own self. So that showed me a little bit about, once again, dropping judgment and just trying to be in the moment. That's a big thing about synchronicity. It's so cool because it tries to bring us right into the moment that's there, and to see that it's a much bigger moment than you think it is. That's a profound realization for spirit. It gives us more latitude. It gives us more longitude. It gives us more space in our consciousness. Things can happen. We need to be more present because we can learn more, but also we need to be more present so we will not only not hurt other people, but we can be there to help other people. Synchronicity aligns things in such a really fun way. And it allows us to live more in our imagination and out of that linear thinking. Which allows our humanity to expand and to enrich it and to get a deeper texture. So, synchronicity is a wonderful thing because it moves us away from that mathematical, non-human looking at life to a really rich texture not only for humans, but for spirit to be with the humans and be with us. And so we learn more and more, and that actually, every time we get a synchronicity, we get a little bit lighter. We get to drop, we get We get reminded that we are spiritual beings in human bodies, and that we're learning to raise our frequency to those higher frequencies and live there, and to live more directly in spirit. So that's the idea of the whole thing. And I wrote, I think it was a couple of, or 2 or 3 decades ago, I wrote just a little verse. I'll just go ahead and say it. Synchronicity is the little parts of God you see. Okay, kind of silly, huh? But it's not that bad, because that's what it is. It's those little parts of God that are brought together for us to see, and see how things fit together and aren't separate. Christ consciousness is about oneness. It's about non-duality. It's not about being separate. It's about realizing the wholeness that's there. It's there for all of us. It's in our hearts. That's the heart connection with the quantum field of all possibilities. The Holy Spirit, Jesus, lives there, right in the heart. Okay? And that's our connection. And that's where we really are. This is where we live. And our spiritual paths are about remembering that. Unlearning separateness, unlearning the stupid crap that we learn, and remembering. That's the spiritual journey. Is a journey of unlearning, and it's a journey of remembering who you really are, who we really are, as all parts of God, the children of God. There's no separation. So I'm going to leave you with that one. And once again, thanks for joining me. And here's a phrase that I like to say that really invites synchronicity into your life. And that is, be sure to seek the divine in all things.